Morning, everyone. Just people filtering into the room. We'll get started just in a couple of seconds. Coming in there. Great. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful sunny morning, or at least I hope it is sunny where you are. Thank you for joining us at this morning's webinar, Conflict Coaching, Turning Tension into Resolution. Delighted to be joined by Linda and Caroline this morning, who are going to talk us through this really interesting topic and hopefully give everyone a few tools to help them resolve any conflicts that they might find themselves in. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. So the most common question we get asked during this is the webinar being recorded? Yes, it is. It'll be sent to you afterwards. Second most common question is, will we get the slides? Yes, you will. They'll also be sent to you afterwards. There's a third most common question. I can't remember what it is. The presentation this morning will take about 30 to 40 minutes. We'll have plenty of time for questions afterwards, so please pop your questions into the Q&A. There'll be opportunities for some interactivity during the webinar as well, so feel free to pop that into the chat. Please also feel free to say hello and introduce yourselves in the chat as well. So this morning's webinar is being brought to you as part of the Wheels Workplace Resolution Programme, which we're very happy to have Linda and Caroline with us as supporters of that. That is a pro bono way for organizations to resolve conflicts through conflict resolution and mediation amongst themselves. So it's aimed at smaller organizations with a turnover below 250,000 per year. And the way it works is, so some trained mediators will get in touch with you to discuss the issue that you might be having and then arrange a pro bono mediation session between the individuals. It's a really worthwhile program. It really helps try and resolve any issues before they escalate to the more serious grievance or disciplinary stage. So I'm going to go away now, and I'm going to allow Linda and Caroline to take the reins. So Linda, Caroline, you're very welcome. Myself and my colleague Matthew are here in the background for anyone with any problems. But until then, thanks very much, guys.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, John. Thank you, Matthew. And I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you who are attending this morning for our session on conflict coaching for charity leaders, staff, and volunteers. I'm Caroline, and I'm here with my colleague and business partner, Linda. And we're delighted to be here with you today. Linda?
Yeah, thanks, Caroline, and welcome everyone. It's great to see so many people joining from such a wide range of charitable and non-profit organisations. And we know how complex and emotionally demanding the work is within the charity industry and that. So as John was saying, our aim today is give you some practical tools to use and perspectives to navigate conflict effectively. So that's our aim for today.
And just a quick note, a reminder that, as John said, this session is being recorded. So we'll be sharing some resources afterwards. And feel free just to introduce yourselves in the chat and use that to share thoughts. And also there'll be a Q&A at the end as we go. Just feel free to comment as we go along, anything that comes to mind that may be helpful to your colleagues from the Wheel in the various charities, or that might enlighten us too. We're always open to new information. Linda?
Yeah. Absolutely. And John, we just move to the next slide, please, just to outline the agenda. So what we look at, again, as John said, it's around 30 to 40 minutes in relation to the presentation, but we will get you thinking throughout that as well. So we'll start off just with a brief introduction to conflict coaching, what it's all about and how it works. Caroline will then talk you through the signs and symptoms of conflict. And again, it's really trying to address things as they happen and just being aware of signs that can be there within the workplace that you can address almost immediately. Core techniques and tools for guiding conflict constructively as well. So we'll share the process. We'll share the framework that we use as conflict coaches, and hopefully then, it'll be something for you to bring back to the workplace. We'll do a short live role play between myself and Caroline to demonstrate what coaching is all about and to take some of the mystery out of it. And then we'll have a Q&A session and we'll open it up for discussion. But again, as we've said, if there's kind of comments or you want to put something in the chat, by all means do, and we'll just make it as interactive as we possibly can with you. Thanks,
Okay.
Caroline. I'll hand you over to Caroline now. So we're going to have a mindful moment before we start.
Yeah, I'm, in addition to being a mediator and a conflict coach, I've also been teaching mindfulness for about 10 years now, and I find it very useful in my own life. And there's a lot of research on how beneficial the practice of mindfulness can be in conflict resolution, just taking a moment. So I'd invite you all to take a moment before we get fully into our session this morning. And I'd ask you to start by dropping your shoulders, following that by lowering your gaze or shutting the eyes, whatever feels most comfortable for you. And perhaps you're noticing now that you are holding tension around the area of the shoulders, maybe in the jaw, the neck, or some other area of your body. But we all hold tension, often unbeknownst to ourselves. So as you sit, trying to relax, and it's not easy, it's an effort. Noticing how busy the mind is and drawing attention to your breathing, feeling your breath, just being conscious of the movement in your torso. Breathing in, breathing out. Not trying to change your breathing pattern, although we can take control of our breathing whenever we want to, whenever we need to. It's mostly done and carried out by the body. The body breathes itself. And you can feel that now. At the same time, you're conscious of the busyness of the mind in the background, constantly trying to draw you away from what you're doing right now, which is trying to be present with your own breathing. Because mentally, we're very busy being non-present. It's an effort to bring ourselves into the present moment. Breathing in, breathing out. And now, with those few moments of mindfulness completed, I'd like to draw your attention to a piece of research that was conducted in 2010. And the title of the research is "A Wandering Mind is an Unhappy Mind." And just very briefly, two researchers in Harvard University by the names of Killingsworth and Gilbert, they're psychologists and researchers. In 2010, just around the time the iPhone was really becoming popular, a lot of people were starting to use it. They created an app, and on that app, they posed a number of questions. They encouraged volunteers to get involved in the research. A lot of people did, over 2,500 Americans, of course, ranging in ages from 18 up to 88. And what they did was they pinged them at random times throughout the day and collated the results. And all the people were very enthusiastic, I suppose because the iPhone was quite new, they enthusiastically participated. The questions were, how happy are you now? And you had to rate your happiness between 1 and 10. Second question was, what are you doing now? And they had listed 22 activities. So you choose an activity. Are you thinking about what you're currently doing? And that was a yes or a no answer. And if you said yes and you ticked yes, well, then you were finished with the questionnaire at that stage. But if you weren't, there was a fourth question. If you're thinking about something else, is that pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? And when they collated these results, they discovered that most people were happy if they were concentrating on the task in hand. Even if that task was boring, or say cleaning your car, cleaning the house, cleaning windows, brushing your teeth, if they were actually concentrating on the task, regardless of how mundane it was, they were happier than if they were doing a task and thinking about something else, even if it was pleasant or neutral. And that's a surprising result. It was surprising for them. And that's why that piece of research has gained such traction and stood the test of time. So to go back to the title of the research, A Wandering Mind is an Unhappy Mind. And they also said that our mind wanders at significant emotional cost to us. And we kind of know that anyway. It was just that this piece of research has certainly shown how damaging and difficult it is to have the wandering mind constantly. You know, when our mind is more like a washing machine, it's on a heavy duty cycle. And with the practice of mindfulness, we can pull it back. We can be present. And whatever's happening in the moment might not be great, but at least we're in the moment, we're grounded. When we're mind wandering and we go to a place called our default mode position, default mode network, and that's what the scientists refer to it. And when we're there, we're prone to negative thinking patterns. So really, the human mind is like Velcro to negativity and Teflon to positivity. We hold on to small hurts and insults, and yet we are happily dismiss compliments. So I'm asking you to think of a time when you held on to an insult and you knew you really shouldn't, but it just kept coming back, a bit like that cycle in the washing machine, coming back, coming back. Mindfulness certainly can make a difference to that, brings you into the moment, allows you pause for thought, to question the validity of what you're doing in the moment. Okay, and go back to Linda.
Okay, thank you, Caroline. So yeah, if you hold that thought, if you can think of a time when there was a hurt or an insult, and sorry to bring you back to that place, but it's interesting because as we go through the slides and the process and the procedure, if you could actually think about that and just think, gosh, maybe I should have done this or I could have done that. So it's nice to have something to think about when you're talking through the process and the procedures as well. So we just ask you to hold that thought. So John, if you don't mind the next slide, that would be great. So if we look at conflict, I mean, conflict is an inevitable part of all of our lives, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's in our personal or the broader social side. It's going to happen in that. And sometimes actually, it can actually be the catalyst for growth, innovation, and stronger relationships as well. So it's not all bad. Sometimes, you know, you can look, depends on what way you want to look at the conflict and obviously to how extensive it actually is. But if it's left unattended or unaddressed, again, it just causes us more strain. It causes more distress. Productivity in the workplace can actually go down, and then we end up with damaged relationships. So this is where, like, we feel, obviously, as conflict coaches, we feel this is where conflict coaching plays a crucial role in it. And if you look at just briefly conflict coaching, it is about the one-to-one conversation with a person. And it's not always the easiest. It takes courage to come and look to do conflict coaching, because first of all, you're acknowledging that there's a difficulty there. But you're also saying, listen, I'd like to address this. How can I address it? And as coaches, then we help people develop their skills, their communication skills, around resilience as well. Because it's none of us choose to be in there. So again, it's a proactive approach to resolving conflict for you as an individual. So next slide, please, John. So in case you couldn't think of something earlier on when Caroline was asking you just to reflect, maybe when you did feel a hurt, it could be something as simple as this, that, you're in the workplace, you organized a birthday kind of cake, whether it be a cake and a present, but you went that extra mile for somebody. And not that you wanted something in return, but nobody even acknowledged it. So, and you kind of just think, oh gosh, am I wasting my time here? So again, in a moment, you may feel hurt, a little bit of resentment, and maybe disconnect from the team as well. So it's a very simple example, but again, it's some of these simple things that happen in the workplace that we can hold on to. As Caroline is saying, like we're kind of programmed to keep that negativity and go with that piece. So very simple example then. So I think I will hand you back to Caroline, and Caroline is going to talk you through some of the signs and symptoms of conflict that you might want to look out for within your organizations.
Yeah, thanks, Linda. Well, even after if there's a row in the workplace, really, if things escalate to such a point where people end up, having a standing up shouting match, which is horrible. Anyone's been involved in it, it's awful. It takes so much out of you. Things are said that can't be taken back. It's very difficult, but inevitably that ends in silence, and that's where we've started. So it's the sort of when the workplace where somebody goes in and they look around and they can feel it. You can sense the unhappiness, the anxiety, the stress, because it pervades. It's not just the people who are involved in the conflict, it spreads throughout. So that's what I will get on to, how it impacts on, in general, the whole workplace. So there's silence, and that can happen on a Zoom call as well, or a Teams meeting when people aren't getting on. It comes through the airwaves as well. Of course, that causes people to stop collaborating. Begin to think, what's the point? You don't feel like it. You feel at a low ebb, and it doesn't seem important anymore. The conflict, the row takes priority over everything. Feel yourself that you're changing your mood, both at work and at home, because work doesn't end when you leave the office or turn off your laptop. It impacts outside of that. Changes in behavior or mood, and that can be noticed at home, with family, friends, etc. Drop in performance that may be noticed by managers. So another, side effect that is really quite detrimental and damaging, and also increased complaints and grievances. For example, things that wouldn't annoy you begin to annoy you now. I remember reading a WRC case, and it was laughable but not funny, where one employee was complaining about the other employees' loud breathing at work, which was distracting them. So, but you can imagine if you're really in a bad place, everything gets to you then. I mean, we all know that. We've all been there in one way or another. So you can imagine how somebody's very loud breathing, you're trying to work away, make phone calls, etc., in an open plan office, and somebody's breathing is the only thing you can hear. So yes, that becomes a real issue and warrants a complaint. And also resistance to feedback or change. And again, that's going to impact on the organization as a whole. If you don't feel that you're part and parcel of it, why would you change? Why would you do anything that's going to help the organization? And any feedback you might get would be regarded as criticism, because there's a level of sensitivity there that hadn't been so previously. So conflict in the workplace is enormous. It has a huge impact, not just on the parties involved, but throughout the organisation. Okay, and back to Linda.
Thank you, Caroline. Yeah, so as I said earlier, sorry, just the next slide, John, please. The coaching is a process, and within that process, again, it's helping people to handle, I suppose, challenging interactions with confidence and composure. So that's really the job of the conflict coach. And within that, then again, we use this framework, the synergy-based framework, because again, it's kind of proven that it has been proven like that it does actually work, and there's a lot of organization using this model currently. So again, it's a step-by-step approach. So when someone comes to myself and Caroline, the first thing, obviously after getting to know the person, we'll ask them to clarify the situation. So they'll come to us with it in a very strong position. So they know they're in a difficult situation. And again, we'll ask them through, we'll be doing all the active listening and asking questions to get them to think about the actual situation and get them to clarify the situation, not just for us as a coach, but for them as a coachee as well. So again, you know yourself when you're listening to somebody and you're speaking, you're speaking to somebody, and all of a sudden then you realize, oh gosh, I never really realized this. So that's what the coaching piece kind of probes as well. So we also then help the person to identify the impact on them. So the impact, whether it's on them emotionally, whether it's within the organization. So again, we kind of identify that just to name it, to say, well, how is this situation that you find yourself in impacting you on a personal basis? So again, the step 3 then is, and as I said, people come into us and they have a very strong position, and they normally take that position because either a need or a value has been undermined by another party or other parties. So again, we kind of bring the person through that to identify it. And what are, like, we all have different values. We've all been brought up in different ways. And, they're kind of deep rooted values that we hold. So if someone actually impacts on that, we are going to react. Okay. So again, it's just talking through it and naming it. We explore then different options. Like, as with all coaches, we don't have the answers. The coachee will have those answers, and they know exactly where they want to go and how they want to do it. But we will help them explore different options open to them. So it could be like, Linda, what do you want to do? Well, I'll just ignore the situation and just hopefully it resolves itself. Or actually, I'd like to talk to the individual in a calm and composed manner and actually address the situation and find out how we can move on. Or, do you know what, I might just leave the organization. Maybe it's time now. So again, we'll go through all of those and actually get, by doing the pros and cons, we will actually support the person in identifying which option they want to further explore within the sessions with ourselves. So we'll develop the communication skills again there. So again, we literally go through maybe sentence by sentence, because the person will tell us exactly how they want to come across. So they'll practice speaking to us as if we are that person. And then we give them feedback saying, well, you've come across, you said you want to be quite calm. I can see by your face and by the way you're talking that you're quite nervous, or there's something else. So people are open to that, and we give them feedback. And by the end of it, we're building up that skill. So when they do go and have that conversation with the people or persons involved in it, they're more equipped to do it. And that's, sorry, I've gone into 6 as well. That's the rehearse and the conversation. And again, the main kind of element of it is to build that confidence and the emotional resilience. We all want to have those calm conversations, get our point across, and really get the other person to listen and understand from our perspective. But on that note as well, we would also get the coachee to understand it from the other person's perspective as well. Okay, so we will go through, myself and Caroline will go through a role play demonstrating this. And I would say to you, know, again, think back on the situation that Caroline asked you to think about earlier on and see, could you have actually used this framework to resolve the situation? And again, it's just getting you thinking and just following on what we're doing. So I'll hand back to Caroline, who will talk you through the role play. Thanks, Caroline.
Yeah, thanks, Linda. Well, we've prepared a scenario for you, which is about undermining and bullying by a colleague. So Linda is a team leader in a medium-sized company. Over several months, she starts to feel demoralized and anxious at work. Her colleague, Dave, who holds a similar position, frequently interrupts her in meetings, dismisses her ideas, and makes sarcastic comments about her competence in front of others. While Dave's behaviour is not overtly aggressive, it is persistent, belittling, and has started to affect Linda's confidence and performance. Linda has not yet raised a formal complaint, partly because she fears being labelled as difficult, too sensitive, or disruptive. She decides to seek support through conflict coaching to better understand the situation and develop strategies to respond. And we're going to be the players in this scenario. I'm the conflict coach and Linda's the coachee, and we'll just start. Linda, thank you very much for coming here this afternoon to this coaching session. I'm sure, you know, it's taken a lot of courage. It's difficult to take this first step. And this is the first session of a number of sessions. That's up to you. We'll see how we go. At the end of each session, we reflect and review, and we'll see at what point you're ready to talk to to Dave, with whom you're having some difficulties at the moment. So I'd ask you now just to explain in your own words why you're here, what brought you here.
Well, Caroline, I had to come because I'm in a situation that's kind of impacting me. I feel quite stressed, you know, that horrible feeling when you wake up in the morning and just thinking, oh, I can't face this again. And I kind of got to a stage where I just said, I just need to take control. I need to address the situation. So what was happening was myself and Dave have been working together for quite a while, but I noticed over the last 6 months or so that, you know, if we were in a meeting with others, that he'd be undermining me. I'd be the butt of all of his jokes and that. And at the start, I mean, I'm all for a bit of fun myself now, but at the start, I kind of just thought, no, that's grand. But do you know what someone had said to me? Gosh, is there a problem? Like, you know, why is Dave kind of picking on you the whole time? And I said, gosh, I thought it was just me. I thought I was being oversensitive or that, but thanks for bringing it to my attention. So it was, yeah, no, I felt I was just being the target. I looked at our dignity at work policy, because again, I really just wanted to resolve it myself. I don't really want too many people involved in it. And if I can resolve it, that would be perfect. And that's why I've come to yourself.
Yeah, well, would you describe the behavior as bullying? I mean, has it got to that extent?
It has, and I was a bit shocked when I kind of realized that as well. And I think that's what kind of prodded me just to do something about it. Because it's directed at me the whole time. It's quite personal. And it's repetitive, do you know, and again, as I said, I looked at the dignity at work policy, and I think, you know, it does fall under that definition of bullying, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah. Um, how would you say this situation is affecting you, you know, personally and professionally? I mean, how can you describe how it feels?
I feel totally stressed, to be honest. I'm suffering now with anxiety as well, because I don't know what to expect when I go into that meeting. It's like walking into the unknown. And I feel then I'm being undermined from a professional level. My reputation is on the line. Because I don't know about you, but if I get very anxious at that, it's like that bubbling pot. You can't actually see your reflection in it because it's like, oh, you just don't know what, and I can't think straight. So maybe I'll come across as, oh, she doesn't know her stuff. I know my stuff and I know it. But when I find myself just in that environment that's quite stressful, it does have a huge impact on me.
Yeah. And do you think it's impacting on the team that you're working with?
Absolutely, because I mean, I go in and I'm as professional as I possibly can. But I think people are, people pick up on different changes in behavior, and I'm probably a little bit more reserved. Like I'm trying not to be, but I have to kind of manage my own kind of anxiety as well. So I kind of just have to put myself first in this situation in order to, I suppose, even get through the day, to be honest, at this stage.
Yeah. And I mean, when can you pinpoint a time when this started, or has it escalated? What happened there?
Yeah, from our conversation over the phone, I did start to reflect to see, well, when did it actually start? And the only thing that I can think of is I did ask a question in one of the presentations we were both at, and it's probably around 6 months ago, and Dave couldn't answer it. Now, I
Yeah.
didn't, I did it innocently. I was just asking a question. So I don't know whether he thought I was trying to show him up, or I never gave it a second thought, to be quite honest. And it was only when you kind of said just reflect back on it, it was the only thing I could come up with now, to be honest.
Yeah. So Linda, that's interesting. You've actually pinpointed a time when you think you pinpoint the incident that you think brought about the change. Well, we may look at that in more detail, i.e., the reason for Dave's behavior, but not now. This part of the session is all, it's about you and dealing with how you're feeling. But there may be a time when we can look at why Dave is behaving as he does. If you want to look at that further down the road, of course,
I,
this is all within your control. This is up to you, but I'm just putting it out there for you, even at this early stage.
yeah, I'd like to understand where he's coming from. Absolutely.
Yeah. And what would you need to feel safe and respected in the workplace now?
I just need for him to stop those behaviors. Do you know what I mean? Just to go back to
Yeah.
the way we were and just not have me as his target. Just, go back to our working, professional relationship and just how I can feel safe there. I don't know if he would know Dave. I don't know if he would give an apology. If it was a sincere apology, I would take it. But
Mhm.
it's not, I would just like the behaviors to change and for me not to feel that way when I go into a room, where he is or that.
Yeah. And we could look at the options that are available to you, in order to achieve your goals. I mean, you want to feel safe and respected. What sort of options do you think you can explore or you'd like to explore in order to get there?
Yeah, I think I'd like to explore the option of just addressing the situation just between the two of us. That would be my
Yeah.
preferred option. I could just ignore it, but then I'd probably go to a stage where, I probably would consider resigning because, it's a small organization that we're in and reputation is everything. But I would like my preferred option at this moment in time would be to be able to have that conversation with him and address whatever situation. It may not be what I've pinpointed. There could be something else, but I'd like to know.
Yeah. So what you're saying is you'd really like to have a direct conversation with Dave when you're in a position, when you feel prepared to do so. Is that what you want?
That sounds perfect.
Okay. Well, Linda, now that we have identified what you want out of this, which is a direct conversation rather than mediation or escalating the case to HR at this stage. What we can do in the next session is role play a scenario for you to have that discussion with Dave, and also to practice staying calm under pressure, and plan for his potential reaction. And his reaction may not be as good as you think it should be. So it's just planning and forecasting, and reinforcing and building up your own strengths, and also preparing you for preparing some self-care strategies if the situation becomes very emotionally intense. I mean, what do you think of that as as our setup for our next session? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, that sounds great. That's exactly what I'm looking to do. And yeah, I'd like your feedback just as to how I'm coming across on that. Because obviously, you know, I would like to come across in a very professional and calm manner as well. So yeah, no, that sounds great, Caroline. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Linda.
So as you can see there, I hope like we outlined that procedure there to you. And I hope you agree that, you know, when Caroline is asking me questions, I am kind of delving into the situation myself. I'm thinking, I have Dave in the background of, you know, what's kind of going on. And by asking me the questions, then it's making me focus on maybe what I have brought to the situation, and how I've handled the situation till now. And I suppose the key piece that the coachee should feel is, and I did feel it, Caroline, is that Caroline was listening to me and understanding exactly how, you know, what the situation was and is from my perspective. So yeah, if we go on to the next slide there, John. And we just have a couple of tools as well. You may have come across this one before. It's a free tool that's out there, the Thomas Kilmann conflict model. Because we all approach conflict in different ways. And I suppose the best way, if we want to do it and resolve it immediately, is doing it through collaboration. But not all of us are actually there, and some of us may never actually get there because, again, maybe our preferred style is to avoid it. So, and a lot of people will do that. And again, it's people taking responsibility. And by going through that procedure, you can come up with your own options and make, make your decisions based on that. So this is a tool that we'll send you. Again, it's a free one, and you can see where you come into it, where your preferred style is. And then you can decide, if you choose to work on your conflict style and that. We've also looked at a couple of resources, which are just on the next slide there, John. A couple of 3 books that we would recommend to you. Sumo is, I know it sounds quite rude, shut up and move on, but it's actually a brilliant little book that it's more around personal development, so that if we do want to, develop personally, this gives us, I think there's about 8 different kind of sections in it. And it just, basically tells us, tell that inner critic maybe just to stop. Decide that you're going to do something and then move on. So it's a very light-hearted fun book as well, but it's very good. The Mediator's Handbook, obviously myself and Caroline are mediators as well, and I suppose when we're looking at conflict coaching as well, we would coach people to be in a position where they can actually attend mediation and they're more prepared to sit in the room with the person. So again, some people use it as a precursor to mediation, but it's actually very much a standalone kind of process as well. And the other book, Ken Cloke is a leading kind of person in relation to mediation. So it's just a recommendation. They're books that we find very useful and very easy to read as well. So hence we're recommending them to you guys as well. So just, I think that's the end of our presentation. So
So if anyone has any questions, we'll certainly try our best to answer.
Guys, that was great. I thought the role play itself was just a really instructive way to kind of see what the process is like. And I can only speak for myself, but I imagine a few of our colleagues that are attending as well probably found it quite relevant to maybe their experiences in the past. So really useful exercise. A couple of questions coming in now. The first one is, do you follow the framework in a one-to-one first before sitting down with the group?
The framework will actually, I suppose, when the conflict coaching is a process itself. So this is part of it. So we get to know the person a little bit beforehand. We might have a couple of telephone calls, and then we will actually follow that procedure, because again, it's proven to work. And again, each is a follow-on step. So we would and we do actually follow that process, yeah, within the conflict coaching. Did that answer your question?
And then the next question, does conflict coaching require both parties involved in the conflict to engage, or can someone try and resolve it with one party?
Do you want me to take this, Caroline, or do you want to?
Well, yeah, well, I can take it. No, obviously it would be ideal if both parties do attend coaching, but if one is reluctant or reticent, the other party who does want to get some coaching can just go ahead. I think it would be ideal. I mean, we're delighted if two parties want to both, because then they have the opportunity to see the perspective of the other party, and that can really be a light bulb moment. It's through the questioning that all of a sudden you're able to step into the shoes of the other person that you've been having difficulty with, and you could only see your own perspective. It allows you to open up the lens through which you see, to widen the lens through which you see the conflict, and take a step back.
A really interesting question coming in here, just about, I guess, expanding the process a bit. So any tips on adapting the process to deal with conflict between stakeholders, key stakeholders? So I guess rather than volunteers or staff members, that if you're collaborating with different parties, could it be adapted to deal with that in the same way?
Absolutely. I mean, the framework works in itself, absolutely. But again, you know your stakeholders and you know the difficulties, maybe that, the personalities at the other end. So again, absolutely, you can adapt it. But I think, if you follow that sequence of events, that you're trying to understand it from the other person's perspective. And in that little Sumo book, they give a good analogy of, the beach ball. So you have your beach ball and it's red, white, blue one side. So if you're holding the beach ball and I see red in front of me, I throw to Caroline and she sees blue. Do you know what I mean? That's the position that you're holding, and sometimes it's hard to move away from that. So what you're actually saying is that, this is where, and you're right, your perspective is right, and Caroline's perspective is right as well. So it's trying to see the bigger picture as to what the situation is out there. And I think you, with your stakeholders, you know exactly what the relationship is like. You know, if there are difficulties, what the difficulties are. So again, it's looking at this framework, use it as a basis of it, and then absolutely tweak it in a way that suits your stakeholder group.
I guess coming back now to the kind of interpersonal conflict then. So if the person that's causing the conflict seems to be oblivious to all of it, what would you suggest there?
The first thing I would say is, and I'm sure you all have a dignity at work policy. So again, I would always refer people to their local one. But the most preferred way of doing things is, talk to the person. If you have the confidence to talk to the person and say, do you realize when you say X that it makes me feel, it undermines me? I feel very stressed. And I'd say from my experience, 9 out of 10 people go, seriously, I don't believe you. And there was never any intention there at all. So before anything escalates, I would always say, if if you do have the confidence to go and speak to that person and just highlight it to them. If not, and you do need coaching, come to me and Caroline, and we'll help you have that conversation with that person. And that's what it's all about, is trying to address the situation, you know, just between the two people. That's always the ideal from a HR perspective as well, rather than getting too many parties involved and your business kind of going out. So yeah, always just, if you can just talk, bring it to the person's attention in a very kind of informal manner.
Yeah, Linda's absolutely right. To try and manage the problem before it escalates to a serious bullying case where, you know, you get solicitors involved, HR are involved, and even now, and I think this is worthy of note, that there has been a quite recent High Court direction which requires, even where people decide to go to court to bring a high court action for bullying or circuit court action, you must go to mediation first. The courts will not entertain a bullying case any longer without the parties having at least attempted to mediate first. So, and step down from that, conflict coaching. I mean, the message is filtering down. Try everything else before you go to court. So Linda and I would say, if you're feeling in a difficult situation, you know it's likely to escalate, come to conflict coaching. Even if the other party isn't willing to, even if the other party doesn't appear to be aware of the difficulties they're creating in the office environment or wherever, you know, in whatever workplace. So we would certainly recommend that.
Sorry, Carla, we forgot to mention, or maybe we just the whole thing is totally confidential as well. So
Yeah.
there's confidentiality, and we need to and we build up trust with the person, so they can actually open up to us, and they're comfortable and they feel safe in the environment that we create within the coaching kind of room.
There are two follow-up questions related to both of those points. So the first, on that early intervention, it's more, I guess, as a bystander. So if someone observes this conflict, but the person that maybe is on the receiving end of it isn't flagging the issue, what can the person that is observing it do?
I suppose from a HR perspective, we would always say that there's kind of zero tolerance, and that's what's in all of our policies and that. So if you are an observer, I would suggest maybe bringing it to your line manager rather than getting involved in it. Maybe bring it to a line manager and make them aware. And then what mostly happens is the line manager, once they're aware of it, will talk to the party separately. And then they'll try and get a sense as to if there is a problem, and then if there is a way that they can help or they can support resolve it. So I would always say, like, if you do see something, you know, I always say we do have a responsibility to do something or bring it to the you know, a manager's attention rather than just ignore it, because if we all continue to ignore it, that just creates you know, psychological unsafety in the workplace, because then we're saying, oh well, this is acceptable behavior, this is part of our culture, and I certainly wouldn't be advocating for that. So if you see it, absolutely, if you can, don't get involved in it, but if you can actually, you know, escalate it to a line manager, that would be my advice on it. You might have something different, Caroline, but
No, I'm completely in agreement with what you're saying, Linda.
The procedural question that pops into my head there when you say a line manager, the recipient's line manager, the observer's line manager, the aggressor's line manager.
your own,
Maybe the wrong
no,
word, sorry, but
yeah, the alleged perpetrator, I think they're referred to all the time. Yeah.
Sorry to all alleged perpetrators there.
So I would bring it, like, if I witnessed it, I would bring it to my line manager. Okay, so, and again, you don't want to, because if you go to one rather than the other, and it's like you're a bit biased there, so you bring it to your own line manager, and you've fulfilled your part within the Dignity at Work policy.
And going back to Linda, you mentioned the confidentiality. Would coaching be documented in HR files?
No.
So there wouldn't really be a record of it anywhere.
No, we don't take notes or anything when, like, I mean, throughout it, we will take a few notes, but we just destroy those afterwards because it's not our conflict. We're helping and supporting and coaching the person to achieve the option that they have actually chosen. So we don't, like, I mean, we'll just have in our diary that, you know, we met Linda on whatever date and that, but that's all. We don't, I certainly don't keep notes.
And also, it can be used as a support to prevent gossip in the workplace. I mean, if you, somebody who is attending a coaching session can say, well, look, it's confidential. It's absolutely confidential. I can't talk about this. And that gets you around the difficulty of somebody saying, oh, what's going on with you and X, and, you know, that dispute you're having. Oh, I can't talk, you know, I can't. And that prevents office workplace gossip as well. So it actually provides a support in that way too.
And in general, should an organization retain records that the process has happened? So without maybe going into the actual details of the discussion and the coaching, you know, would an employee file mention that there was that a process took place?
See, I think it depends on what your policy is, what the individual policies are, you know, are stating around it. So it could be just a reflection, you know, to reflect on the policies that are in there. What does it say in relation to coaching? If there isn't one, maybe to create a coaching, you know, policy. But in general, people will come to us kind of, you know, one to one, and they won't necessarily need to go through an organization, but it could be different, you know, with the wheel. So again, you kind of outline those guidelines and you agree them with your members on that and say, well, this is our policy. But the majority, 9 times out of 10, you know, the organization wouldn't be aware that the person is gone for conflict coaching unless the person divulges that to their line manager and is open to it.
Questions come in there just about it's on a bigger scale than one to one. I know that you kind of handle it in say groups of up to 3, but what would that look like for 3 people or even on a bigger scale?
It would really, you know, it depends really. Like if they're doing the conflict coaching, they will each come to us one to one, and then you would hope by, you know, going through the examples and that and testing out, you know, how they're communicating, that individually they should all be prepared and be able to have that conversation without, and I suppose that's the difference between coaching and mediation. Like as mediators, myself and Caroline will be in the room to facilitate a conversation. Whereas with conflict coaching, we're looking at that individual and we're, you know, helping them develop those skills to have that conversation and taking personal responsibility for the conversation they have, whether it's with 2 other people, 3 other people, 4, whatever number. So it's them having that resilience to have that conversation.
They can each receive coaching. If there's 4 or 5 people who are in dispute, each one of them can go for conflict coaching, or the majority of them, and then decide to have a meeting together. But the conflict coaches won't be present at that meeting. That would be a mediation. If we were present, that would have turned into a mediation at that point, where the mediator is a neutral party and facilitates the conversation between the parties in dispute.
That's an interesting the kind of point to make to clarify the difference between the conflict and the mediation there, which
Yeah.
I do see a question in the chat just asking how to access the pro bono scheme. So that is just good. I'm putting that into the chat there for anyone that needs it. We'll also make sure to include this in the kind of follow-up email as part of the resources. I think just one last question coming in, Marcus, if they're going to get to you now. So just in the synergy model, what do G and Y stand for?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll come back to you on that.
Oh, great. Well, that'll be in the follow-up materials too. So.
Yeah.
There is, sorry, yeah, I'm put on the spot, and I can't, can you think of it?
I can't actually, you know, Cindy Noble, I actually thought it had something to do with her name, and I left it at that. Imagine being here and not. That's
We'll come back to everyone on that one, then we'll put a little note in
yeah,
the,
yeah,
The
to find
slide.
out what synergy means.
yeah.
Oh,
I
dear.
didn't mean to have it written out now. I did mean, because I kind of thought, yeah, if I was at this, I would be asking that question. So sorry. I'll
Right.
take
No,
that.
no problem. I think that's about us now. We've gone through all the questions that I can see anyway. Carla and Linda, thank you so much for being here this morning. I just found that really, really interesting, really helpful, particularly again, the role play. That's not something I've really seen too often in a webinar. So just that kind of real life example, I suppose, a real life kind of dialogue for me is a really interesting and helpful way to learn. To everyone in attendance, thank you also for being here on this lovely sunny morning. As I said, the recording will be shared with everyone. Slides will be shared with everyone. A few different notes that we mentioned there will also be included with your email. I will give one more shout out to the pro bono mediation scheme that's in the chat there. It really is a great resource, so we do encourage our members to try and take it up as often, well, not as often as possible, as needed, I suppose I should say. It would obviously be better if you don't need it, but here we are. Caroline, Linda, again.
Yeah, and John, just before we go, we have an email address there. It's on the last slide.
On the last slide, okay.
Yeah, for people to contact us, they can send us a message. And we can get back to them. They can send us a message directly if they require coaching.
Bring that back up just in case anyone wants it. Excuse me. Oh yeah, there you go, sir. So there's the email for everyone. Again, we'll include that in the email as well, but just in case anyone is looking for a short term, by all means, feel free to reach out to Linda and Caroline. Okay, that brings us up to 11 o'clock, I think.
Yes,
Time for a cup of tea, everyone. Thanks a million for everyone that was able to attend today. Next Friday's webinar is a complete change of tack. We are looking at it's the ABCs of anti-money laundering. So very interesting to see if there'll be any crossover between the attendees this morning and next week. But hopefully I will see some of you there. Thanks very much, everyone. Goodbye.
Thanks a million.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.